Well, hello, everybody. Well, hello. It has been a while since I have been in this seat. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the award-winning recovery podcast brought to you by the McShin Foundation. Get in the herd. We're stumbling over words today, so we're gonna make it through. I'm your host today. Actually, I'm your co-host today. My name is Nathan Mitchell. I'm a person in recovery from a substance use disorder, and today we have someone coming out from behind the mic and behind the camera and in front of the camera.
Hi,
Justin,
how are you?
how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I thought about when I was coming up, I was putting together a schedule for
The schedule.
the week.
Putting together the schedule.
And one of the things I like to do when I don't have a plan is to look at what happened in this day in history. And so when I was looking at October 14th, it turns out Ronald Reagan. You all know who Ronald Reagan was?
Who was that guy? Wasn't he an actor?
He was an actor. Yeah, he was married to Jane Wyman.
I didn't know that.
Well, I only know that from I only know that from the Back to the Future franchise. There's a line in there when Professor Brown says,
I know.
"Yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
yeah." Isn't that funny? Anyway, so this day in history, in 1982, Ronald Reagan was elected in 1980. He took presidency January 20th of 1981, and October 14th of 1982, Ronald Reagan doubled down on Nixon's war on drugs, and as a result of that, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of individuals found themselves incarcerated the next several years as a result of this continued expanded war on drugs. So,
From what I remember, wasn't that really, really successful too?
oh
It
yeah,
accomplished everything it was supposed to accomplish.
as long as you just say no.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, see, that's the part that they
All
didn't
right.
teach you about, right? They
Oh,
taught you to
yeah.
just say no, but they didn't teach you how to have a meaningful life. How to bring purpose into it. How to get past all the systemic issues that were pressing against individuals, people. So and then of course crack. But I thought it would be an interesting conversation today, and if anybody's out there and listening wants to chime in here, how has the war on drugs affected you? And I think that's a good topic because I can certainly look back and I can think, here in Virginia, right? I speak for Virginia, of course. Virginia, and you probably know this. I've talked about this enough, but felonize, right? Felony for a drug possession charge, right? We're not even talking about any other crimes associated with drug use. We're talking a felony charge for an individual just carrying an illicit substance, a narcotics, what's the word I'm looking for? One or two narcotics, one or two, Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, right? Which includes cocaine, methamphetamines, heroin, et cetera, et cetera. So you can get a 10-year imprisonment for a possession charge in Virginia and become a felon. And so what that's and if anybody thinks that that's right, then we need to have a talk. And I wonder why you're actually watching this podcast because that's insane to me. That's an absolute it's insanity, right? Because we're not actually helping people. And so my personal, my experience with this is that, I was arrested on a possession charge, and there's a whole story behind that, right? And in many, many ways I'm grateful, and we've talked about this here. It's like, would I have found recovery if I hadn't been to jail? I don't know, because there wasn't another option, right? There wasn't something else that happened. I got arrested, put in jail. I was told to come back in a few weeks, check in with a pretrial officer, and that's what I did. And for the next like 6 months, I think it was, I don't remember how long it took to go from arrest to trial. There was a couple of times we had to continue because we had some procedural things that came up. But I kept checking in with the pretrial officer, and the only thing I would do is come in and I would dress up, put on a shirt, button down. Usually I wore slacks. Sometimes I wore jeans. It was in Warrenton, so you can get away with clean jeans, and as long as I look presentable. I had short hair, and if I had a beard, it was trim. And I'd walk in there, and of course, I was employed. I was had stable living,
Stable living.
with my mom. But that's another story. And I would come in there. I would tell her what she wanted to hear. And essentially, I'd walk in. I would say, "Yeah, I'm working. I'm doing great." I would pee in a cup. She would look at it. I passed the urine screen. With I wasn't faking my urine screens, but I was certainly doing 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, and I would turn around and get high in the parking lot on my way back home.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that really worked for me. Really good stuff.
Hmm.
And for the most part, through that experience, with that pretrial officer, I'm very good at playing the part
Mhm.
until I'm sick of it. Until I
Right.
realize the futility, the ridiculousness. This is a whole Nathan episode right here. I guess they all are kind of, but this is a whole Nathan episode. But I look at this experience because what happened is that I would go there. I would tell her what I knew she wanted to hear, and it was really easy to figure out. Am I working? Am I living somewhere safe? Am I still doing drugs? No, no, I'm fine. And the reality was, I've talked about this before. Like, I lost 35, 40 pounds in front of this woman in 4 months because my using had not only was I continuing my using, but I was actually doing more of it, because I was stuck in a cycle of fear. Like, at this point, I'm facing a felony, thinking I'm never going to get another job. I'm never going to get a house. My life is, frankly, my thought was my life is worthless. And this woman was content with telling me that, in fact, my life is worthless because I continue to do drugs. Because that was kind of the answer I got to her when I finally said, and my last time I saw her was, why are we doing this? Why? Is
Mhm.
this really what it's all about? I was 40 years old. So, I had been doing drugs and abusing alcohol for a long time. And I'd never had any legal consequences until that point. And which, I don't know what that says. But it says that, for a very long time that, like, I just didn't know what recovery meant. I had a lot of biases against recovery.
Mhm.
For me, 12-step fellowships were cults,
That's exactly how I felt when I
religious
first
cult. Yeah.
started going to meetings.
And they chanted.
They did. They held
Yeah.
hands at the end.
They held hands, they chanted, and they prayed.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's not for me,
Everything
you
about
know?
this goes against everything I believe in.
Good gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But that was like my only thought. I had no idea what recovery meant. It looked like, really sketchy people chain smoking cigarettes, saying prayers in a church
Cigarettes and
basements,
coffee.
cigarettes and coffee, right? And still grateful for that coffee, let me tell you. But my experience there, so with the pretrial officer, I go in there, I talk to her, and this one day I finally decide, this is ridiculous. Why are we doing this? I ask her, what are we doing?
Mhm.
And she's like, well, Nathan, you are a felon. And I'm like, really? I said, it's a public health care. She said, yeah, but it's illegal. It's a felony to use drugs. And in Virginia, you have what's called the 251 disposition, a first offenders law. And I, up until then, I had never been involved with the law. Well, not to the extent of charges or been arrested with the law. So I was eligible at that point for the first offenders law, right?
Mhm.
I'm also a person in recovery from a substance use disorder. I was in active addiction at that time. So what does that mean? Well, drug use is a symptom of the disease,
Right.
right? And we
Right.
all understand that. So yeah, I was using, and while I continued to use, continued to break away. I continued to isolate. I continued to do all the things that I did in active addiction. Um, just slowing down for a little bit here and there to make sure that I could pee, correctly in the cup,
Right.
and then I wasn't changing anything. In fact, I was getting worse. So when I confronted this woman and she said that to me, I was like, you're ridiculous. In my head, I'm screaming. I'm just smiling because she looks at me and she's like, but Nathan, look at how well you're doing right now. And I'm in my head, I'm screaming at this woman. I have no idea what to do. I am so scared right now because I feel like my life is over and nobody will help me because if I say anything, I feel like I'm just going to end up in jail for the rest of my life or everybody's going to disown me and hate me.
Right.
Which at that point, pretty much everybody had already gotten to the point where they were starting to hate me and disown me, or at least I thought, right? And I was really scared, really, really scared at 40 years old and sitting there with that woman. And instead, of course, of saying anything to her and confronting, well, not confronting her, but, being vulnerable with this woman, because what would that have served, right? She had
Right.
already said to me, I'm a bad person. I just stopped going.
Mm.
And if you know what happens when you stop going to pretrial, the word absconding happens. And then you get a warrant for your arrest and you get picked up. Or at least they try to find you and pick you up. And then I have cops showing up at my mom's house, at my old work, and everywhere trying to find me to pick me up. And of course, I had my mom's car. I'm driving around Crystal City and Northern Virginia. By the way, giving it to my dealer to use because that's how insane my disease is, right?
Sweet.
Because that's sustainable, and then I go back to jail. Well, I go to jail for a few days because I finally do turn myself in, and the 251 disposition went right out the window,
Mm.
which means that my first offenders law completely gone, and now I'm going to be a felon, and I became a felon, and I was sentenced to 2 years in prison for that, for that little bit of narcotics I had on me.
Mhm.
Like not even enough for a night to get. Um, and of course that was suspended. I had 2 years probation as a result of that. And I wish I could say that was the end and I found recovery, but I didn't.
Right.
What I found was resentments and oh, it's your fault. It's the police officer's fault who lied to me. It's the pretrial officer who didn't know what she was doing. It's the judge who had it out for me. It was everybody else's fault, of course, but mine. You know, Mom didn't pay for the school I wanted to go to when I was a kid in college. All I go back real deep with my resentments, right?
Mhm.
And so I spent those 18 days, it was 18 days in jail between my arrest and the trial, or whatever you call that bench trial thing. And, I spent a lot of time figuring out how I could be real resentful and hateful.
Right.
And of course, I got out and I did all the things I was supposed to do, except none of those things. I was in a different county, so I had to get my. This is a gap. So what I'm telling you right now, Justin, I'm sort of describing the gaps, right? The gaps from these moments. Like we have all these moments in recovery from when like somebody, whoever that person can be, right? When there's a moment when it doesn't have to, we talk about the, digging the hole, we do, reaching bottom and all that stuff. We
Right.
talk about that, right? But there are these moments when we have an opportunity, right? And I see that these are gaps, if we don't seize those opportunities. And so one of those moments, of course, is that initial arrest, and then of course every time I saw that pretrial officer, there's an opportunity there for a person in recovery, somebody who actually might have some lived experience and be able to see through my bullshit, you know, and
Mhm.
say, you know what, Nathan, I see that you dressed up the trash can, but how are you doing inside? But someone who was coming in, with
See
not.
that you dressed up the trash can. I like that.
Yeah, well, because I was very good at dressing up that trash can, you know,
Right.
and that's always been I would say it's a curse and a blessing for me. I'm a clean cut. I used to have short hair and I always trimmed my beard and had no beard. I'm a clean. I'm a queen. I'm a queen. I'm a queen. I'm a clean cut white guy. I get into things very very easily, and I know that about myself, and that is a blessing. It's a curse. Ooh, do you hear Walt back there?
Is
Or
that
I
Walt?
don't know. That's Walt. But there's somebody back there's having a real conversation. But anyway, so look, there's these gaps, right? So there's this gap when I'm initially getting arrested. All the opportunities with that pretrial officer, and I mean, how am I ever going to be honest with this woman? Because of course, if I say that, hey, I'm still using and I'm scared. Well, what am I facing? More jail time.
Right.
And it's like I don't want new charges. So I have a vested interest in not telling her the truth. The cop. I mean, legit, the cop lied to me when I first got arrested. And in fact, if I hadn't been honest with him, if I had just said nothing, I wouldn't have gotten arrested.
Right.
And there's a whole, in my head, it's like, well, I'm glad I did because I got, I found recovery, yada yada yada. And still, there was a missed opportunity there. There's a gap. There's a gap.
Right.
There's a gap in the pretrial. There's a gap in that moment. Oh, we got flies everywhere, man. They're
Everywhere.
attracted to bullshit.
I opened up a window and I think a couple of them flew in.
Mm.
And that one in particular right there is really bumming me out.
Yeah, there are some big ass flies around here.
And they're ballsy too.
They are ballsy flies. We have big ass ballsy flies around here.
They'll like land on your face.
Yeah, it's like I'm tasting. And I got, yeah. Oh, are you gonna try to Obama that?
Obama that.
Do you remember that?
No, oh.
Yeah. I think he's a Chris Wallace or something. Anyway, right? So look, so I get out of there. Ooh, I'm dropping cheese on me.
Don't drop cheese on
Don't
me.
drop cheese on me.
Don't do
That sounds all kinds of
that.
weird.
Very unprofessional.
Very unprofessional. So I do end up, turning myself in after I've absconded. Um, there's a moment where there's a moment where it was really really messy for me, before I turned myself in, and I'm uh, without getting too graphic, but I'm doing some really really grubby stuff, really really grubby stuff, like stuff that to this day there's a tiny little part of me that when I do that I'm like, wow, that was really resourceful, really awful crap, but I guess I can say shit. I've said it enough times. Some
You've
really
said it enough
awful
times.
shit. But there's a tiny part, the addict part of my brain is still, when I talk about that, there's a tendency to have there's a
Got it. Sorry. I had to do that. I
Whew.
apologize. Now he's stuck in the mixer. Yeah.
Bzzz.
All right. I
That's
feel better. Sorry,
all right.
everyone.
No, that's good. That's good. All right, we got rid of that. But like there's these moments like before I turn myself in, I'm doing some of the grubbiest stuff.
Yeah.
Like we're talking we're talking some really, really bad stuff. And there's a part of me that, like, my brain, when I still talk about this stuff, I have to remember that, hold on, first of all, I'm not that guy, and I don't have to do that stuff. There is still a tiny part of my brain, my little addict brain, that says, you know what, that was kind of funny. That was kind of fun. I mean,
Yeah.
look, it's Thursday. It's some deep honesty shit right now. I ain't got time for bull, you know? And I'm grateful because I have a really incredible network of people, and I can look at that stuff and I can be like, yeah, that was some really grubby stuff, and I was really resourceful and I'm really resilient, and you know what, those skill sets can actually serve me in recovery.
Oh, some of the skill sets that you get, like the resourcefulness and everything, that definitely definitely helps out.
Yeah,
It kind of shitty how you acquire those skills, but once you have them, it's like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, continue.
No, 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 no. This is exactly, yeah. Yeah, this is the relation part. Because I got to that point, but I got really I knew that I had the warrant. My mom's calling me. I'm driving my mom's car around at this point. And so she every time I talk to her, she's like, I'm gonna call the police and report the car stolen. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want that to happen. And I don't want to, there's a part of me that's, resentful towards her, but there's, not now. I mean, there was at that point. Now I mean, whatever, I would have been happy if she, whatever.
Hmm.
I guess I can't live in hypotheticals. Um, she didn't want to do that, and I'm really grateful I didn't put her through that. Put
Right.
her through having to do that. The things that she
Right.
still had to say and do. I mean, that's a thing that we work on, of course, because we have a good relationship now. But that was tough, and
Yeah.
I did finally turn myself in, and I sort of made a weird arrangement with how she would get the car back, and it didn't quite work the way it was supposed to, and I went to jail. And I turned myself in, and of course I continue to point out everybody else's flaws. And so when I got out of jail, when I got sentenced to those 2 years, guess what I did? Guess what I did?
What did you do?
Well, it turns out I found ways and means to use more.
No,
Yeah,
I would have
yeah.
never guessed that.
Well, yeah. So I guess I kind of jumped back and forth story wise, but I got on probation now. We're past the first. We go on probation, and my charges are in one county, and I live in another. So I have to transfer probation from one county to the next.
Oh boy.
Do you know what the minimum time for that is?
No.
Counties right next to each other. I can drive there 20 minutes from one courthouse to the next. You know that? You know what it takes? Maybe 35 minutes. You know how long it takes to get the paperwork through?
A week.
45 days.
Oh my.
How freaking insane is that, to put somebody who's just been convicted of a narcotics possession charge and give them 45 days to get to probation? The thing is that people are dying in the first 2 weeks they get out of jail. People are
Mm,
dying, when they don't have access to any kind of recovery or care. And people, because A, our resistance is down, and B, depending on how long you've been in, the drugs are freaking stronger,
hmm.
right? So people are putting way more in them. They're trying to celebrate the fact that they get out of jail. This is what I did. I'll speak on myself here. Celebrating the fact that I got out of jail. Oh, I beat them. Fuck them. Pardon me. Oh, I did it. Damn it. Ah, there we go. First one. And so I continue to use I moved back in with my mom, and my mom had me sign a contract. And the contract said, I'm going to work on my finances because it's all about how my finances are, right? I'm
Hmm.
not going to use drugs. I'm not going to, I don't know. There were five things and whatever. Those were the two big ones. I don't remember the other three at the moment, but I was high off my ass when I signed that paperwork,
Yeah.
you know? And so I wasn't in a position. I wasn't in a position. I hadn't found any kind of recovery. I just now, at this point, I'm a felon, So now my job prospects. This is my thinking process at the time. My job prospects suck.
Hmm.
You know, I'm 41 years old. I'm living with my mom. And so my life doesn't look all that great. And
Right.
anytime I talk about these fears and these things that are dilemmas that are happening, certainly it scares the jeebers out of anybody who knows me,
Right.
because anybody who knew me, who loved me and cared about me, didn't know anything, didn't know the first thing about what addiction meant. And like I say, I'm a dressed up trash can. I can dress up quick. And I put myself into this position where I needed a job, right? I needed a job, and I found somebody, a woman in DC. I love her to death, and there's an amends I still need to make. Um, but she has this incredible company, beautiful catering company. She does incredible work, or she did. I don't know what she's in business or what, but she's a woman I worked for in my late 20s, early 30s. I'm 45 now. And as a result of the disease of addiction, the substance use disorder, my alcohol issues at the time, I screwed her over. And I just completely disappeared off the face of the earth. I worked as a catering manager for a tiny company in DC, and I just disappeared because I woke up late after drinking too much one night, and I was that was a whole series of that, um, and I just dipped out for a week before I hit her back up and said, "Oh yeah, that's right. You guys probably think I'm dead. I'm not dead. And oh, by the way, can I have my job back?" That didn't happen. Fast forward 13 years later, I had just gotten out of jail. I found this woman, and she had started this new thing, and blah 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 blah. I've I talked my way into a job with her without having to talk about my recent criminal past, the fact that I was on probation. None of that came up, and I didn't talk about it. I certainly didn't volunteer that. And here I am in DC working for a boutique catering company, with a beautiful, beautiful little um, private space downtown. And I'm working in this office, and I go in there, and I would love to say I found purpose, but the reality is I ain't found shit. What I
Hmm.
found was more access because I now had more money. I
Yep.
had a place where I could do things because I had an office and I had an event space, and I got worse. I did more things. I did more of the things.
More of the things.
More of the things.
Yeah.
And this is not pride. This is not in any way. I have a huge debt, financially, emotionally, spiritually, that I still need to make to this incredible woman, and something I haven't quite gotten to yet in my recovery, and it's been several years, but it's one of those things, right? One day at a time. And with her, it got worse and worse and worse, and to the insanity of me being on the third floor of my office, hitting a pipe, with a very illegal substance in it, going downstairs, and not only waiting on, but actually directing events with senators,
Hmm.
Supreme Court justices, and all of their entourage. And in the meantime, we're preparing for this huge event on Capitol Hill in one of the House office buildings, that I'm supposed to run, right?
Sweet.
With hundreds and hundreds of people that I'm going to run. And at some point, mind you, the 45 days, I've now moved into the city at this point. I've completely absconded from probation.
Hmm.
So now I've got an arrest warrant in Virginia. So at some point, I'm going to have to talk to my boss and tell her, "Oh, by the way, I can't submit my social security number and my name for this running this event at the house, office building, because they're going to do a background check and find out I have a warrant for my arrest, and
Yeah.
they're going to throw me in jail."
Yep.
So, of course, I didn't tell her that. I just continued to use and pretend like everything was fine
Right.
until it wasn't.
Hmm.
And then it wasn't.
And then it
And
wasn't.
it really wasn't. It really, really wasn't.
I kind of want to hear the rest of that story. What happened?
So
I
it's
mean,
it's February. It's February of 2018. So we're not talking that long ago, right? It's February 2018, and it's cold. It's very, very cold. And of course, because I make great decisions when I'm using, I'm in a relationship with somebody, and that relationship with somebody is just as toxic as you can imagine. Two people doing the things we were doing.
no.
Oh God, yeah. And I'll fast forward through some of the more graphic details of that, but you can imagine all the things happened. You know, all the things happened, and my emotional state crashed, and she had mercy on me and fired me. Yeah, she had mercy on me and fired me, and I did exactly what I knew I needed to do at that point. Mind you, I now had no job, and I had a arrest warrant for me in the state next to me. So, what do you think I did naturally?
Hmm. I'm hoping you're going to say you turned yourself in.
I would love to say I did that.
I knew you weren't
No,
gonna though.
I decided that the next best thing for me to do was to sell drugs.
Tight. That's a great decision you made there.
Awesome decision. I
Hmm.
took my last paycheck, bought an ounce of a substance, and I went out and I said, you know what? I'm going to do this now. It took me about a week.
This is who I am now.
So I am now. Deal with it. Yeah, yeah. I had all the tricks. I knew
Hmm.
what to do.
Of course.
You
Of
know.
course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I knew how to say to somebody, yeah, I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'm at the I'm at the light. I'm at the light. I'm at the light. I knew how to say that. I
Hmm.
figured I got this. It turns out I ain't got shit.
Hmm.
Um, Somebody was looking out for me. Somebody was really looking out for me. Took me a few days before I got past my not my anxiety. I guess my anxiety is the wrong word. I guess I was just all the feelings that
All the
I
feelings.
because at a certain point, for me at least, at a certain point, I can use and use and use to numb the feelings, but the feelings become so overpowering and so overwhelming that I'm not really. I don't know exactly if I'm numbing things or if I'm just making them not as bad as they are because all the feelings were
Hmm.
really bad, and taking that all of that colliding in February. By the way, I'm homeless. Like I've been living hotel, bed to bed, with people all through the city. I mean, I made money, but I was still living. I'm living on the street. I'm living in the back of the van. I slept at my office a lot.
Hmm.
There were mornings at like 10:30 in the morning. I've got the chefs looking at me, and
Right.
and here I am, still coming down.
Right.
Um, and of course, the things I was doing, you didn't necessarily have to sleep every night.
Right.
But I did, of course, have to shower. So that was, I would do,
Nah.
yeah, no.
Showering, brushing teeth. What's I,
Well, I did do those things. I did do those things, but I did a lot of grubby things to get to those places. The things I did to take a shower in my active addiction are there's some scary, dark things in my scary. No joke. I mean, and the scary, dark things I did.
hmm.
To take a shower for like some of the common like things
Hmm.
that people do. So and so here I am with all the things in my pockets because I'm a drug dealer now,
Yeah.
and I go
All the
out
things in your
all the
pocket.
things. Actually, only a few of the things. I left most of the things somewhere else. Lord knows what happened to them after that, but all the things somewhere else. I left a couple of things in my pockets, and I went out into the night downtown DC. Well, like 14th Logan Circle, U Street area, and went to go do all the next things. Didn't last long. Had all those feelings, and I found myself in an alley on February 18th, banging on a door to try to get to the person I'd been dating, because of course, that seemed like a sensible thing to be
Hmm.
doing. I think at this point it was like 5:30, and I was with somebody else who I just met, by the way. But of course, we're doing the things. So,
Right.
and he had just gotten out of a long bid in jail or prison, and so he at least had the the brains to try and remove me. He was very helpful. He tried to remove me out of the situation, and he did for a while, But I'm me,
Right.
and I finished up with him and some other people. I did the things with them that I needed to do, or I thought I needed to do. Got out of that situation. And I said, you know what? I know where that house is. I'm going back. I'm going to bang on that door, and I'm going to make him answer that damn door. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to tell him what he needs to do.
Hmm.
I have no idea to this day what I wanted to actually say to him. You know, I was
Excellent.
mad. There's all sorts of crap that happened right there before that, getting to that point. But here I am banging on this door, and this kid, he's 45 years old or whatever.
Right.
This 40-year-old man, he who is in this country illegally as a from one of the Latin American countries, and he's here in this country illegally, and he's so scared of me that he calls the police.
Mm,
Yeah. I've now had this person who I kind of thought I loved. I've now had my mom, who I definitely know I love. These are people who have called the police on me in the last couple of years at this
mm.
point. That's a great feeling.
Right,
That's a
right.
great miserable feeling. And I remember, oh gosh, we got a couple wows up there. I remember feeling when the cops did come, I was so righteous in what I was doing because I had in my phone, I had a text message that said, I'm going to kill myself from the person who called the cops. And I was quick to show them, well, I'm just here doing a wellness check and he didn't answer the door. So I'm just banging on the door. And they were quick to buy it
Mhm,
until he said he has a warrant for his arrest in Virginia. And at that point, I'm gone. I'm
mhm.
done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Because, of course, hands up against the wall, pat me down. No dinner first. They just pat you down. Um, and I had enough of the things on me um, that I was now getting new charges.
Mm.
And uh, so the fun thing about that is now I have new charges. I've got a warrant for my arrest in Virginia. I've got new charges in D.C. And in D.C. they don't have you don't have to pay bail to get out. It's all PR bonds there,
Mhm.
unless of course you've got a warrant for your arrest in another district where they have
Oh,
extradition. And guess what? Yeah, they have. Warrington had 4 days, 3 days to come get me, and they took their time. They took all 3 of those days.
of course they did.
Mm. So February 18th, 2018, I'm getting arrested, taken to jail. Very, 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 very cold, and I'm in Central Book. I don't know what I there. I've never gone back to look at what the terms are, the words, the places I was. I don't care. If you want to look and poke holes in my not poke holes in my story, but tell me what I actually did, fine. But the reality, I don't really care.
Right.
I went to one place and it was um I went to this one place first in DC, one of the DC jails. I was in two different facilities. And the first place I was, it was this weird. Uh, Are you familiar with the Borg?
The Borg?
Yeah, the Borg from I think Star Wars Next Generation. The big cube
Oh, yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
it, kind
Yeah.
of, yeah. That's what it kind of felt like inside. It was like all metal pipes and wires and shit. Like it was all
Ugh.
metal. It was real, and it was low and tight, and the guy I was with just couldn't stop crying, and here I am. I'm like ready to sleep for the first time in days, and the first food going into my body is a bologna sandwich on white bread. So not exactly taking this early recovery shit happily,
Right.
because here I and this thing called juice in a little pouch, Ooh boy, but the cookies were good. What are you gonna say? What are you gonna do?
As long as the cookies were good.
The cookies were good, yeah. And I think I spent one night there. They took me to another facility, and somebody there looked at me and they saw what I was there for and kind of gave me like a quizzical, thinking the question. I don't remember exactly how he worded it. The intake, the intake coordinator, or processor, whatever the officer was, but he kind of looked and said, meth. I'm revealing the drug of choice, but whatever. I will talk this. It's like, but that's not an issue in DC. That's what he kind of said, and I'm like, "Whew, you have no idea, buddy. You have
Mhm.
no idea. And I'm right. He has no idea because it's a very, very under the radar thing, in a very specific niche community in DC.
Right.
And, that's how it is. And, he looked at me, he said, do you want protective custody? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what the hell that means. I'm like, does that mean I don't have to be with people?
Right.
And he kind of said, yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that. Cause I'm me, all 5'4.5" of me, and tired because I really, really want to sleep and not too confident with how my bowels are working at this point because,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And that leads to a lot of fun later too. But without going into that story, I spent the 2 days in that particular facility, and then they got me from West Virginia, from Warrenton, and brought me down there. Yeah, and so I walked in. Yeah, so of course that was a fun drive in the back of that seat, back of that vehicle with those two officers, and of course, I had to be a smart mouth, and I'm still me.
Hmm.
You know, so here's opportunities. Opportunities. I will give props. I have no idea where he is or why he did what he did, but that intake guy in the DC jail, was very very kind. Um, and I'd like to think he wasn't just kind to me. I think he just was kind in general. Um, because as some of you may or may not know, in DC, you want to know what you know what you want to know something?
What?
You want to know something?
Sure.
Ask me about possession charges in DC.
I'd like to ask you about possession charges in DC.
Funny thing you should ask about that. As it turns out, right? The same charge I had in Virginia, you know, possession of a Schedule 1, Schedule 2 narcotic, up to 10 years in prison. Insane shit, right? Insane shit. Right? Let's talk about that insanity of that. Not getting anybody help. You're just a bad person. You need to go away for 10 years,
Yeah,
possibly.
gone.
Gone. And by the way, the judge, just because I've come to grips with my recovery doesn't mean that I still don't look at people and say you're wrong. And I know,
Hmm.
this is where things are. So, anyway, charges in DC, all misdemeanor shit,
Hmm.
all misdemeanor,
Right.
all misdemeanor. The possession of the drug, the possession of the paraphernalia, which is I had three charges, and even the distribution charge that I had was a misdemeanor. I didn't have much on me. I was smart and didn't bring everything with me, and that just kind of went away. But the other two charges, I stayed there.
Hmm.
And so I had to deal with those, and so I'm going back to Virginia. I've absconded. I had absconded in Virginia, so now this is the first violation. So I'm waiting for court there. Blah 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 blah. I end up going to court, and by the way, you don't like go to court like the next day. You have to wait until the day. At least in Warrenton, you have to wait until the 1 day or the 2 days a month that they actually handle these charges. So if you happen to get arrested, the day after the courts have done this stuff, then you have to wait until the next cycle of this. So I think I ended up waiting like 21 days before I went in front of the judge to find out how I was going to get sentenced for a first, for a first, my first, what you call it, probation violation. Now I know the law. I know the law has changed in Virginia, and I don't know how that would affect me today. But I could tell you that is an absolutely obscene, absurd, ridiculous amount of time for anybody to have to wait to see a judge. It's a damn good thing that I wasn't, detoxing off of something,
Hmm.
or on some prescription medications, and it's a damn good thing like all the other things going on in my life, weren't like I have to be there for them because that doesn't help anybody. That certainly
Right.
doesn't help anybody in recovery, not at all. You know, and so waiting all this time, um, I go to Virginia, and it's February, I don't know, 21st or whatever this is now. I'm checking in, checking into my new hotel,
Right.
checking in. I'm going in. I'm getting into this new facility, right? And I'd spent the other 18 days of my recovery at the Fauquier County Adult Detention Center, and
Adult daycare.
adult daycare. Anybody who knows, it's a little tiny facility. And I spent that time there, and so I'd been there. I kind of knew what it was like. The food's actually pretty good, I suppose, relatively. Um, and I went in there. I went into this, into this. We call them blocks, not pods. It's basically one big room with five cells, separate cells, and they have one little divider on one side where guards and trustees can come in and deliver food or laundry or mail or whatever, and then we're on the other side, and there's one long sort of half table and a TV, and the five cells, each have bars on them as well, and two people in a cell, so you can have 10 people in one. We called them blocks.
Hmm.
Main Street was where the table was, and First Street, Second Street. I think that's what it was, or maybe it was ABC. No, it was First Street. And then the blocks were ABCD. Anyway, and so I go in there, and I'm not from Warrenton. I'm not from northern. I mean, not from that part of Northern Virginia, or even if that is considered Northern Virginia. I just happen to, find some trouble there, and turns out I walk in there and I do know people,
Mm.
and I know people who are very just, you know. in not the greatest of headspaces, and nothing against me. I mean, they still had nothing against me. Just quick to tell my business, and I can tell you, it's not fun to have other people tell your business in jail. It's not fun to have anybody tell your business anywhere. Period.
Right.
As it turns out, it's kind of a universal truth, I think.
Hmm.
And but I found myself in a position of um, instigating. I identified this person I knew, who I think he was 19 or 20, and um, he was the father of a child with a girl, obviously, of the woman, of the daughter. I'm sorry, the daughter of a guy I'd been messing around with. So he knew me from that situation, from there, and so he was quick to tell my business about who I sleep with and whatnot. But I did find myself not only enjoying it, but almost goading him on, like in a way that like I was picking fights with him,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I suppose the word successful. I was successful in that I got him to hit me a couple times, on a couple different occasions, and to this day, I kind of feel. I mean, not kind of. I feel guilty about that. I knew what I was doing at the time. I really hated myself, and I just did want. I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel physically what I felt mentally.
Hmm.
You know, and I used this person to do that,
Yeah.
and he, being a person with agency and also feelings, and also a conscience, he felt bad. I know he felt bad because he came up to me and he tried to buy my silence. He was worried I was gonna tell the guards or something, but he was also really sorry. I could tell he was really sorry, and I'm like, dude, you have nothing. Not only do you have nothing to be sorry about, but I'm the one who needs to be sorry here because I started this, and I manipulated you into doing these things because I wanted you to hit me because I just hated myself so
Hmm.
much. But the one thing I did while in that experience was, I had these opportunities to get out of that pod and or that block, and I took them. Everyone
Yeah.
that I had, the priest came in and said, "You anybody want to do confessional?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'm going to go confess to the priest because that's exactly what I want to do right
Of
now." But I'm like,
course.
I'm going to get out and do that. Turn and I laugh about this, and I laughed about it then in my head. But the guy, the priest, Father John, he looks like my grandfather, and so right off the bat, I was actually disarmed by him. And then when I sat and talked to him, I actually had an amazing conversation. He was the one person. There were some guards that were really good, some of the deputies, but he was the one person outside of the peers who came in, with the McShin program. He was the one person who came in and actually treated us like human beings. Um, there were, a lot of these do-gooders who would come in and then tell you how bad you are and how you need to change your ways and yada yada yada,
Of course.
and that's all well and good. And maybe some people bought into that. Maybe I don't know, but he connected because he came in and he treated me like a human being. And he looked like my grandfather, so that was a big help for me, because it was I felt somewhat safe or comfortable.
Yeah.
And the other opportunities were just to go out to the library, and I love to read, so I went to the library to get books, and then of course they had NA and AA meetings that came into the jail, and then Celebrate Recovery, but I did not do Celebrate Recovery. So I'm sure they're great. I love them too, and that's great. It's a wonderful pathway, yada yada. I wasn't in a spiritual place at that point to accept that as a pathway. I am now, but I wasn't. And NA and AA meetings, and I'm like, well, let's go see what these culty people are doing. Let me just get out of
These
here.
culty people.
And I did, and it turns out there were some people in there. There's definitely people like me who are just trying to get the hell out of their pod, but there were some people in there that just felt genuinely like they were doing something different. Like they were actually smiling and seemed a little happy. Now I'd gotten there on the 21st of February. I was cold as heck, right? And I tell this story all the time, and this is I mean, it's a true story. I mean, I went in there. My mom came to visit me once, and I hadn't seen her in so long. I mean, it was you know end of February when I'm seeing her, and I hadn't been around for Christmas, so she went and sold my Christmas present. She brought me that money and put it on my books in jail because I was like, "Bring me money, bring me money, bring me money. I need stuff. I need stuff. I need stuff. I need to be comfortable. How am I going to live here?" Um, and so that's what she did. And she brought me $40, put it on my books, and I took that $40 and I bought coffee and sweets.
Of
And I
course.
didn't do the one thing I needed to do, but I didn't want, I didn't spend like the $8 or whatever ridiculous amount of money it was to buy socks. And I talk about that all the time, right? Like my feet were cold. I didn't buy socks. I bought the instant gratification stuff.
Hmm.
It's a huge metaphor, to me at least. It's a metaphor for my recovery. And but it's the truth. And I did that, blah blah blah. These McShin people who kept talking in the NA and AA meetings just seemed happier. And I was like, I'm kind of miserable getting this kid to beat me up over here. I'm sick of being the butt of everybody's gay joke. I want something different. This sucks. Like,
Hmm.
I've got people, and I'm literally sitting here thinking, how can I commit credit card fraud when I leave here? Like, I'm learning all of these tricks, or at least I'm hearing all of these things. And I'm thinking
Right.
in my head, I'm like, well, if it was so good the way you did it, how come you're here?
Yeah.
Those kinds
Yeah.
of, but at the same time, I'm picking up all these ideas. And mind you, I'm already a felon. So at this point, I'm like, I'm never going to get a real job. How am I ever going to be a real boy?
Hmm.
Right? How are you going to be a real boy? So anyway, these people seem a little happier, and I'm like, maybe I can go over there. I hear the word McShin, and of course, the first thing I think is, where the hell in Scotland are these people from?
Hmm.
Right? And I look this one guy who seemed uh he was a nice enough guy, and talked to him. I asked him about it, and he said, well, put a request in, and these are what these people are. It's recovery, and these peers come in and they talk to us, and
Hmm.
yeah. So I said, all right, well, I'm gonna try that. So I put in a request, and a couple days later, the lieutenant comes in, and she asks. I'm saying lieutenant, but might have been whatever her title. I don't know what she was. She was a person, and she was in charge. And she came in and she said, well, you're going to court in a couple days. Do you want to do this, or you want to wait till after that? And I said, no, I want to go do that now if I can. And I go in there, and the very first thing, they have to vote on people. So they I guess they must have put my name up there, um, in the McShin guys. They must have put my name in there, and they voted on me coming in. I guess they knew me from NA and AA meetings, and I got in there. I got accepted into the program by my peers, and I went in there. And the very first thing that happened was this guy who looked nothing like me, who was way younger than I am, tall. I'm 5'4.5". Let me remind you of that, tall, which is anybody over 5'6" to me. And he says, "Your feet look cold." And I'm looking at him, going, "Oh shit, what have I gotten myself into? What's he gonna do? Why does he want? Why does he care about my damn feet?" And I must have, of course, this isn't all going through my head, quickly, and trying to be like, "Yo, leave my damn feet alone, quit, leave me alone," and he must have noticed that. He must have seen what I was thinking, maybe he related, and he just looks like, "No, man, I got you," and he ran off to his cell, and he pulled out a pair of socks, and he gave me a pair of socks. And that moment, like I still get teary eyed thinking about that moment, because that was the moment where I first allowed somebody to help me.
Hmm.
I first, it was the first time in a long time that somebody did something for me without expecting anything in return. There was
Yeah.
no transaction there, and there was just pure love, pure
Right.
help. I can see you don't know how to help yourself. I'm not going to give you shit. I'm not going to judge you. I'm just going to help you at this moment. And he gave me, that was a big spark. I mean, I talk about that part of the story all the time, because it was so profound in me finding something different, saying, what, maybe there is something I can change here. And it took, all these people that came in and devoted their time, their efforts, their finances, everything, coming into these jail programs and saying, I was here before. I was in these cells, or I was in cells just like this, for the same problem. And you know what? I'm out now. And I'm doing things. I have relationships with my family. It's not a perfect world, but I have tools to get through that imperfect crap.
Right.
And I'd love to say, that I learned all the things and got out of jail, and I was like, yes, I'm cured. But I'm me. Um, I, I finagled my way. This is a whole conversation about the history of the drug war, and here I am talking about my history. Go figure. I finagled my way into getting the same person who who uh who had called the cops on me in D.C. This relationship I'd had. I had somehow wormed my way back into that whatever, I'd say relationship, but that toxicity, and convinced this person to pick me up from jail. Now, my intentions weren't to screw the person over. My intentions were to you know to do better things. But as some of the literature teaches us, we judge ourselves by our intentions, while the world judges us by our actions.
Right.
I certainly had no idea what my real intentions were in those moments. But what happened was, I got out of jail that morning, and I went and checked in with the McShin office across the street, and I met, some new people that hadn't been in the jail, and I met, of course, the people I knew, and I said, "Hey," and I said, "Well, the judge had mandated me to go to Richmond to complete the program. That's what my paperwork said. Go to Richmond, complete the program." Yeah, yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Very, very interesting. That's a whole nother story for another time, right? But that's another gap. But so I get out, I meet these people. I'm terrified. I figure out what I need to do, and all this stuff. And I have a week before I can get down to Virginia, down to Richmond. I don't remember exactly why I needed the week. I think it had to do with something with paperwork. It was paperwork. The probation office. This is insane. Okay, I got the judge mandating me to a facility, to an RCO here in Richmond, where we are now. Right, judge mandating me here. Probation officer telling me that, oh well, we can't send you there for 90 days. 90 days. Da- d- 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 It's freaking insane, is what that is. Here
Yeah.
I am just out
Yeah.
of jail. I got no job, no prospects. I'm a felon and I'm an addict with none, not being treated. And you're going to tell me I need 90 days before I can get down to the place where not only am I mandated, but I know can help save my life? Are you freaking insane? But of course, I didn't see it that way. I saw, well, I saw it as, all right, well, maybe, maybe I got 90 days. I can figure shit out, whatever. I got some time to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we talked, in the office, and we figured this things out, and we took a week for whatever reason. It was a week. I forget why exactly we needed that week. And sure enough, the person who was picking me up showed up, and I said, all right, well, I'll see y'all in a week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of looked at me and said, you gonna be all right? I'm like, I'm fine. um um and I go across the street back to the jail parking lot. I get in the car with these people, because it was two people who came to pick me up, and within, right there in the park, we haven't even driven away. We haven't even turned the car on, and I've got, my drug of choice and a different drug offered to me right there in the parking lot,
Right.
and I'm like, it's probably one of the scariest moments of my life, um, because the car started to drive away, and the way we had worked it, we had to stop back at the McShin office because I had to pick up a book or something. I don't know, but we had to stop there and then go. So we stopped there. I picked up my book. I got in the car. We started driving down a little while. We didn't even get half a block. I said, just stop. Just stop. I can't do this. I said, I just can't do this. And I got out of the car and I went right back over to the McShin office. And I had no plan at that point. I mean, I get nothing, nothing. No money, no job, nothing, no food, and real strong sense of entitlement still.
Mm-hmm.
Don't That doesn't get beaten out of you too quickly. Not out of me. I'll say me, out of me. I walked in there. I'm like, I don't know what to do, and they just scrambled to help. I mean, they wasn't even really a scramble. They just helped, you
Right.
know. I talk about Charlie Brook, and he looked at me and he's like, oh, do you know how to dig a hole? Mind you, this is April 23rd of 2018. The weather is absolutely freaking gorgeous. We're at 254. Wow. I've
Mm-hmm.
been talking that long.
Yep.
Wow. Charlie Brook looks at me and says, how are you at digging a hole? And I'm like, oh, I'm great at digging holes. Ha 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 ha. Look at my whole life. And so he takes me across around the corner to his house, and he has me dig a rose bush. I hope he still has that rose bush. I haven't been there in a while. But he had me dig, and I dug the heck out of that hole. That hole was just that. I destroyed that hole. Phrasing. But I dug the heck out of that hole, right? I dug the heck out of the hole. I didn't know, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and I was terrified. My mom wasn't rejecting me, but like, she didn't know what to do with me. And these people who had been helping me, who had been in my position, are saying, you know what, we're going to help you now when you can't help yourself. And I made a decision to let them do that. which was terrifying. Kind of. I'd like to say
Right.
I was terrified, but I felt relief.
Hmm.
In a way that
That's how I felt when I came back here.
yeah,
Relief.
relief. I felt relief when I got arrested too, back in February, because I didn't want to go sell drugs.
Hmm.
Without implicating, I mean, whatever, I did a little here and there, but like I, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do that, and I'm not. And so they helped me, and they spent the week. I spent a week. I stayed at my mom's for a couple of days, and we got some stuff. And it was a tense week. I think they were terrified I would use. I probably, in hindsight, I definitely said, I'm never going to use. Ha ha ha! I'm done with that. I'm sure I had that mindset, and I'm sure I believed it at the time. And I haven't used since then, but I realized the fragility of that promise. It's a pie crust promise, or it's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, well, it's my intentions. um but because I've had some real close encounters since then, and those are stories for other times. but
Hmm.
but I spent that time, that week. Charlie would pick me up, we'd go to meetings. I'd go here, I'd go there, I'd go, with my mom, and we got ready, and then finally my mom brought me down here to Richmond. And Yeah, made some other decisions, and ever since then. But I guess all of that to say this, you know, this war on drugs. We're creating a class of criminals who are we've created a class of criminals, with mental health issues, with substance use disorder issues. We've taken these societal issues, and we've put them into a system that's not only not prepared or capable of handling these situations, but are completely inappropriate for handling these situations. This is, in Nathan's opinion, this is cruel and unusual.
Hmm.
Absolutely cruel and unusual. If we look at substance use disorder, if we look at addiction as the chronic disease that it is, if we consider it as like something like cancer or diabetes, something that can be arrested but never cured, right? Well, maybe cancer, but I mean, like, diabetes, you can put it at bay. And then we can actually get some meaningful help to people who need meaningful help. But if you continue to criminalize, if we continue to put people in jail, if we continue to make this class of people who can't come out and say, what, I don't know what I'm doing, I need help, but are afraid to do that because they're afraid to go to prison or jail, well, then what are we doing?
Right.
It's 2021. It's 2021. States like Oklahoma and Alaska have defelonized, you know, drugs, uh, the big drugs.
Right.
They've defelonized. I mean, they've even decriminalized and legalized some of this, some things. So we're at this point in Virginia, where we're looking and we're like, what are we doing? What are our priorities? Are we really trying to help people? Are we just trying to keep putting people back into a failed system that just set up to push people down and to screw people?
Hmm.
You know, and so I get a little passionate.
You do.
I get a little
It's okay
passionate.
though.
I
It's a
get a
good
little
thing. It's not a
passionate.
bad thing.
And we think about drug courts, because that's going to be another topic for another time.
Hmm.
But drug courts, and we think about, what do they mean? Is this just another failed system that's going to be created to screw people over? Or is this something that we can actually put some evidence based practices in, where using is not a crime, but a symptom of the disease?
Right.
you know where can we do that? Are we going to continue to put points on people just because they do the wrong thing, just because their disease flares up? Oh, you've got diabetes, you ate a candy bar, up, you might go to jail. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Right.
It's a
No, that makes sense.
system designed to hurt people, to put people down. And if we look at the history of this, I know John talks about this all the time. We look at the racial implications of marijuana laws all the way back to the early 20th century. We look at the war on drugs that admittedly, were designed in the 70s to put a thumb down on the African American population, to screw over the civil rights community, the civil rights pathway. And we look at what Reagan did. We look at what crack epidemic did, and how we can look at the laws, man, the federal crime of crack versus cocaine, how the years of time are just so disproportionately, you know, for the same absolute drug. Oh, we got conversation back there. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. And as much as I want to sit here and talk about the history of the drug population, I mean the drug war on drugs, blech. You know, I like looking at the whole war on blech. I almost said whore on drugs. That's a whole different.
The whore.
That's a whole different war. Yeah, we look at the history of the war on drugs, you know, and look at it framed through the lenses of the individuals, you know, as we continue to tell our stories. You know, I'm getting deeper into narrative training right now with some of the organizations I participate in, some of the things I do. You know, how we tell our stories, who we tell our stories to, why we tell our stories, how important. You know, I recover out loud. I recover out loud because not everybody has that opportunity. You know, not everybody can say, "Hey, I'm a person in recovery," because they fear their job or they fear getting arrested, or not everybody has the opportunity to say they recover out loud because they're dead, you
Right.
know, when it comes right down to it. So these are the things that drive me. These are the things that keep me up. And I want to learn more about the history and the jaded past of it all, but I also want to look at the future, because as dark as I make this out to be, the more we identify these gaps, you know, and I see it. I mean, I work with some amazing people, you know, and I happen to get arrested in a rural community where not a lot's happening out there. But you know, you get into other places in Virginia where there's some more, I'm not going to say progressive politically. I'm going to say progressive thinking, forward thinking. You know,
Right.
where we're actually addressing the root causes of addiction instead of just locking people up. You know, there's some really great stuff happening out there. There's some great prosecutors who have some better mindsets on how to handle these things on all sides of the aisles. You know, not just the Democrats, not just the Republicans, but you know, it's purple.
Right.
And there's a lot of hope out there. And that's why, I mean, that's why I show up to work every day. You know, I look at all those gaps and I'm like, all right, well, cool. I can identify the problem. How do I live in the solution? You know, if I'm just pointing at the problem all the time, well, I'm not only am I not living in the solution, but I'm just exacerbating the problem and I'm just making it more.
Right.
And I don't want to do that anymore. So that's why I get up, I go to work, do my job, even when I don't want to. I didn't want
Hmm.
to be here today. It's one of those days I woke up and I just did not want to come in.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do a thing. I stayed in bed for a little while. You know, I was up at, you know, I blew past my pool time at the my pool time. You know, I didn't go swimming this morning, and I felt a little guilty about that because I took time away from somebody else who could have done it. You know, and I got to work late, even though I was up plenty of time. But I didn't feel like coming in today, and I was worried about some things going on at my life outside of here. You know, always things out of my control. You
Hmm.
know, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. But man, does it take a while for me to get to that acceptance point sometimes.
Right.
You know, and I just didn't want to do that today. But I'm glad I did. You know, I'm really glad I did because I've had an amazing day. I have. Like, I've had some great conversations. I've had great conversations with people today. You know, it's been an exceptional conversation day, actually. You know, people I haven't talked to in a while. You know, a friend of mine called me up, you know, former participant here called me up to say, you know, he's doing, not only is he doing great, but he's getting ready to get off probation soon, and life is good, and he's got a job and another job coming up, and he's doing the things, like the things, the real things, not the
Hmm.
things. And I like, and he called me, and out of the blue, and I hadn't heard from him in a while, and I immediately thought the worst, you know,
Right.
as I do, and they couldn't take the call at the moment when he called, and I texted him back. I said, you know, I'm sorry, I'm in a Zoom. Are you all right? You know, and he's like, no, everything's great. I'll just call me when you can. And you know, I called him as soon as I was off that Zoom call, and I was like, man, I'm really, this is what I want to hear.
Yeah.
I want to hear the successes. I want to hear the, you know, the failures and where we can fix things too. But I want to hear the successes. You know, because recovery is not doom and gloom, man. Recovery is a freaking beautiful thing. You know, I get to have um, relationships with my family. You know, I get to cook stuff. You know, I get to
Hmm.
make decisions on whether I get up at 5 in the morning and go swim laps in the pool. You know, I get to drive to work. You know, these are great things. I texted my sister this morning, my mom this morning. You know, I had a conversation with a couple of new persons to recovery,
Hmm.
and you know, it's just been one of those days where, despite myself, it's been great,
Right.
and I love that.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. And we're at what, at 1 hour and 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yep.
Woof! How'd you let me go so long?
You were in the zone.
Well, I love this. I love this conversation. I love that we get to have this space and share this time together. It's one of my favorite things. And I know there were some comments. I think it was Chelsea who said something. I can't read it from here. and it's a really long comment. Chelsea, I love you, but we'll talk offline. I am not reading it now. Sorry, it's been a long time, and I need some water. But listen, y'all, recovery is a beautiful thing, and I'll tell you, if you're out there and you left McShin and you got some shame, you feel like you can't come back. I mean, that's fine too. There's other recovery community organizations, and we want you to find something. John was really cool about that last night, talking about that. Look, you're letting me ramble. Tell me to stop. How do we stop? How do we land this plane? How do I stop talking?
Bye.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. See you Tuesday. Bye.
Here at McShin, we believe in the McShin way, which is authentic recovery support service providers, people with lived experience, bringing that experience to those who need that lived experience in recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in many things to support our mission. We believe in women empowerment.
What I love most about what we believe here at McShin is we believe in the authenticity of the peer-to-peer approach.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in giving people opportunity.
Here at McShin, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
At the McShin Foundation, we believe in helping people reach their full potential.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in placing principles before personalities to help spread hope.
Here at McShin, we believe that recovery is possible and that any person seeking recovery can become a more acceptable, responsible, and productive member of society.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in self-discovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in saving lives and offering second chances.
Here at McShin, we believe you can do this.
Here at McShin Foundation, we believe that we can only keep what we have by giving away, which is why we continue to help others like us seek and find recovery.